Hi, a very good afternoon. It is indeed an honor to join you here at the Young Societal Leaders Plenary, and an even greater honor to moderate this panel of three outstanding individuals. They're outstanding in their own right, regardless of their age. Really true game changers if you're going through their bios. I just want to do a quick run-through of these three new friends that I've made. One, we have Ms. Farah Senior, the founder of Children of Mindanao, the president of the 10th National Young Parliament of Philippines, and a relentless advocate of peace and understanding amidst cultural and religious differences. So, Ms. Farah. And then we have Lord Fuller Najafizada, or called Lord, the head of Tolo News, Afghanistan's largest 24-hour news station, who till today continue to defy immense risk of physical harm to run the news network. He runs a team of 1,000 persons, continue to practice objective professional reporting in the face of physical harm. And of course, we have Ms. Aditi Prasad, the COO of Robotics, which laid the groundwork for Indian Girls Code Initiative, a free, hands-on coding and robotics education program for 2,000 underprivileged girls. She trains up to 10,000 kids in India for robotics. She seeks to bridge the gender divide in STEM education. Now, to my three friends over here, you guys represent the 18 outstanding young societal leaders in our midst as the inaugural class, right? Now, I've been doing some Google research, right? And you have made me utterly depressed, right? I've never been so sad before looking at the bios, right? I couldn't stop asking myself the whole week that I started doing the research, what have I been doing for the last 39 years of my life, right? The things that you have achieved is something that I have never imagined myself to be able to do. Now, so I'm not going to be nice to you. I'm going to be mean because you spoiled my week. All of you have overcome incredible odds and achieved what many would take a lifetime. Now, I just have a couple of questions for you guys. One, what is that one challenge that you think has to be solved now, and what motivated you to want to stick the neck out and do it? And the instance of Lord is a real neck sticking out. So maybe we have Farah. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. What motivates me to do what I do? Perhaps I should just share the story of my mother. My mother comes from an ethnic and religious minority in southern Philippines called Mindanao. And despite coming from a rich heritage, she actually was born into a very poor family. Her mother was sick. At a young age, she had to help the family. Sometimes she would actually sell maruya, which is a special type of banana coated in sugar, just so that she could give food to the table. Other times, she would actually go to the public market and wait until sunset and see if there are any rice grains left behind that perhaps she could take home. Now, this story of poverty that my mom would often tell us actually became further aggravated when she lost her younger brother just because they had no money to bring her brother to the hospital. And that moment awakened her that she said that she had to finish her degree and work hard. And right now, my mom is actually a successful businesswoman. Perhaps not as successful as many of you are, but successful nonetheless in the SME industry. Because of this hard work of my parents, me and my siblings were privileged enough to actually gain good education. And her story actually taught us to not take things for granted. And when I remember the story of my mom, I just feel really deeply hurt because I know that millions of my fellow Filipinos still go through the same story. Millions of my fellow Filipinos also go through the story of my mom. And what's more difficult is that right now in Mindanao, we're actually still having an ongoing war. At the time of my mom, there wasn't any war in her hometown, but life was already difficult. So for me, this serves as a motivation to reach out and to help out It's that story of personal connection that gives a human face to these concepts of poverty and hunger that we often tackle in these magnificent conferences.
Well, talking about trying to operate in a theater of conflict and making changes, I think you have a lot of experience in that. In fact, I understand that you hardly go home, you sleep in your premise, you travel along in an armored vehicle, you stay in a concrete reinforced office. You have threats by the Taliban issued against your network in 2015, and the threat still stays. Why? Why do this?
Well, I am in a business of winning a battle of ideas between generations, and that means the country has gone through so many revolutions in the past 50 years, from monarchy to communism to anarchy to civil war to Taliban and now to democracy. It's probably too many revolutions for one or two generations. And for the past 15 years that we've had democracy, free press, it has its challenges. It's hard for us to bridge the gap, the generational gap, the education gap, the urban-rural gap. And we think that through communication and media, I think we can address that. One of the biggest issues at the moment is security for Afghanistan. We've had insecurity for so long, and Afghan people have suffered enough. And we think that once they're empowered, they're informed through education, through media, things will change for the better. But it's certainly not risk-free. It's not just special about journalists being the heroes. Living in that country, doing businesses, working for the government, going to school, comes with risk. I think resilience of the Afghan people is what really is the key indicator for a brighter future. And we are just trying to be part of that convoy.
And I just went to Lot. I done my research on you. In 2015, 7 of your colleagues were killed in an IED incident. And quite a few of your colleagues were injured as a result. You could have decided that you want to end this, pack your bags, go somewhere else. So why? Why continue this journey? What kind of change are you trying to effect?
Because that was not the first and is not going to be the last sacrifice of the Afghan people. When Taliban bombed a bus of my colleagues, we reported it as just any other news story. And there were suggestions that we should probably boycott the Taliban, we should not report, on them anymore. And our editorial decision was that this is not going to be ethical from a journalistic point of view. So for us, I think this is the suffering is going to continue. It's a difficult terrain, and but it's the resilience and the hope of the Afghan people. The country is very young, 2/3 under 25. So you can imagine that Taliban were ousted 15, 17 years ago. So a big chunk of the population barely remembers the Taliban, let alone what happened before them. So that is the key driver of the hope and motivation. And I think the younger generation, once they're equipped with education, once they're equipped with free press and exposure to the world, the country's future will change.
And talking about struggle, Aditi, you have your own battle, and that is trying to bridge the gap between the have and the have-nots through education. You're trying to bridge a gender divide. What was your experience like, and what keeps you going?
So this journey started at an all-girls orphanage in a small city called Trichy in southern part of India. We were donating robots to an all-girls orphanage. And, we had like an inaugural session. We gave them the robots, and we did a little presentation for the girls on the future of automation, robotics, coding. And while we were going through this presentation, we were showing them about automation in terms of the automatic doors at hotels. This young girl, about 6 years old, gets up and asks, "What does a hotel mean?" This showed us starkly the digital divide, the economic divide that exists in India, and the lack of quality education, let alone 21st century education. And that really keeps us motivated because we're also looking at economic divide, digital divide in a country that is growing so fast and in a world that is technologically advancing.
Obviously, you guys have made vast changes to society, changes that more than any one of us could imagine. No, but then again, there's always been that observation that the younger people, I think those, the millennials and the Gen X or Gen Z, tend to be soft, right? They are keyboard warriors. They prefer to sit behind a desk, send out tons of social media stuff, take videos, and rather than getting their hands dirty, making that change. Now, I want to ask you guys, so what do you think are the strengths that are unique to your generation that will make the big difference to society? Maybe we start with Farah first.
I think we live in a privilege where social media and technology helps in connecting us. Now more than ever, it's easier for young people in my country, despite coming from different regions, to connect with each other. But not only, and also connect with young people from other countries. But not only that, now we also have the ability to also connect with thought leaders themselves. Just by tweeting them or creating a commotion online, we could do this connection, which I feel wasn't exactly present many decades ago. However, though, I have to say that this type of technological innovation also poses a threat in terms of distraction. Distraction in the sense that people could easily be dissuaded from the pressing issues actually going on. You see like such a grave crisis going on, and then just flip up your screen, another funny cat video, for example, just shows up, or you see other media wherein you can actually promote your own profile and these things. So I think like it's necessary to create the balance between the two.
Lot.
I think the issue of being inspirational and being overambitious is one of the key characteristics of the younger generation that what I see. I don't see less ambitious people if I travel to, let's say, a village, or if I come to Singapore or New York. You see that drive in the younger generation. How you use that is important. If you use it in the right way, you get result. It results into progress and good. If you don't, they ends up in the hands of ISIS. They're being manipulated, and this ambition, which is very strong and deep, I think is very unique. And I see that they are looking for inspirations left and right. And I'm afraid sometimes you don't see enough of inspirations in the world to give to the younger generation.
I think the biggest strength that the younger generation has is being open, sharing. Thanks to social media and the internet, I don't think the younger generation has a problem in letting shedding all that vulnerability and kind of opening up and discussing about everything that goes around them. And technology also helps sharing perspectives worldwide, bringing people together on various platforms. So I think that openness and sharing is a big strength.
Okay. Wow. Actually, on this note, it is actually quite interesting. I actually have a question coming in through the Pigeonhole system, and do feel free to keep the questions coming. Now, this one is going to be a bit difficult, right? We always have that observation about the younger people that they just ask too many questions, right? They will ask, why do this, why do that, and stuff like that. Now, the question is for the three of you, like, what would you, the young leaders, want to ask the leaders from the previous generations sitting in this room today, and they are in fairly senior positions? If you do know them, you can address them by name, but what would be that one question that you want to ask them? And I'm sure the floor will be quite happy to answer some of these questions. Who's ready? Aditi. Yeah.
I have a very simple question. I'm very curious to know whether the leaders of today are prepared for more women in leadership positions.
Well, we have a question on are they prepared? Well, we have our senior guys here. Anyone want to take a step at this? Right, gentleman there.
You know, it's not just a question that you have. I can speak. Most of my bosses have been women. My mentor and boss is also just sitting here, Yulene Go, and she knows that we've all lived in a world where women are important, and I do hope and pray what you want, there will be more in the future.
Thank you. Anyone would like to weigh in on this? We know that it is actually difficult for women to try to balance work and life, certainly across not only corporates but public sector. We always have the issue. Would any one of our top corporate honchos want to weigh in on this? Like, how is your corporation making a difference to encouraging women leaders to step up? We have Mr. Piyush.
Thank you. The honest answer is the outcomes would suggest that we are not ready and haven't done enough. It's actually interesting to note that all the way through the mid-30s, there is a majority of women in the workforce in many of our countries, certainly at university level, entry level, into 30s and so on. It's really the big drop-off happens at senior levels. And it's really to do with childbearing and child rearing mostly. Re-entry into the workforce has been difficult, and we haven't done enough to make it easy for women to re-enter the workforce from time to time. The company I work for actually has been fairly good at this, predates me, but the capacity to let women take sabbaticals and off-track and on-track at the right time, I think is one useful remedy to this problem. Nevertheless, there's a lot more that needs to be done. Hopefully, our generation can do some, but I am sorry to tell you that a lot of the heavy lifting we are still leaving to your generation to fix.
I would probably ask. There's so many great leaders in this room, and I have a lot of admirations for them. But if you look at the world's inequality, if you look at what's happening in some of the most underprivileged societies, I think it's our responsibility as the privileged, quote unquote, layer of the society to think about whether we have done enough, whether we have been fair. I think that question of fairness and justice is very deep-rooted in our world, and this results into a lot of social conflicts. So a lot of our leaders in the business industry can probably ask this question from themselves every now and then in any societies to see how much more they can do.
This must be a very daunting question. I'm sure some of our head honchos can look at, but so Lord, if you yourself have to answer this question, how would you do it? You see, that's how we do things, right? You don't get a response, you get to answer your own question.
When I do interviews as a journalist, some politicians try to ask me the question I ask, which is, of course, difficult. But given the fact that I'm not a journalist today, on this panel, I would probably encourage more CSR activities, more engagement. Sometimes in Afghanistan, I'm very skeptical of the way that the international community, the Westerners, have created their own bubbles. And you have people living in Afghanistan for 10, 15 years, but don't speak the local language. They don't hang out with Afghans, they don't get out. And you create your comfort zone, and that's applicable in all areas that we work and operate. I think we should probably think about breaking some of those comfort zones and engage with people that we normally don't. We journalists, we do the same. But when I come here and I'm part of this group right now, and none of them are journalists, this makes me to think differently about what I do and about the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Laura?
Sometimes,
Just bear in mind, if nobody answers a question, you can answer your own. So ask properly, yeah?
yes.
An easy question.
No, sometimes I actually wonder, what does it feel like to be in a position of so much power? This room contains some of the most powerful individuals in the corporate and business world. And you have so much power to influence many things in life. And as a young individual who's just starting out, sometimes when I imagine myself, maybe someday when I get to that point, I could do more. But then, for all of you right here at this position, and with this one life that you have, I wonder how much, thought comes into, the way you live your lives and the way you conduct your businesses. Only few people get to have the privilege to be in where you are right now. And it's a really moving experience, I believe, and each one of you are terribly blessed. And how I wish that more people who are in a position of privilege could also give back and share that privilege to other individuals.
This is going to be a tough question because whoever answers it assumes that you're powerful beyond measure. But let's assume that you're not. Take a step. The mic is coming over. Yeah. It's on the mic.
So I think my name is Niels Andersen, and I'm, among other things, board member of Unilever. So I actually assume Paul would say something here when he said something from the stage. I think you'd find that most of us business people, we have limited influence on what goes on in the world, but we try generally to do what's best, and also try to use the power and the wealth of the companies to do something good in limited or wider areas. And I think I will answer or give my contribution to the first question, is what do we do on equality in women? And it covers a little bit the second question as well, about this, the Western economies living in bubbles. So when I was CEO of AP Møller Mærsk a couple of years ago, we introduced a global maternity rights and all our women around the world. And we did it because we felt, exactly as others have said today, that it's easy to recruit women in, but once you pass the maternity period, most women consider again their lives and change, and they find it too difficult to come back, or maybe the economic situation has changed negatively during the period. So we introduced, and Vodafone, by the way, did the same at the same time, a global rule that women going on maternity leave from our company could do it in the same terms wherever they were in the world. So that meant that, of course, we took young women, and we had a lot of talented women in the emerging world. We took them to Northern European standards, which basically means half a year of fully paid leave, and hopefully a lot of help coming back and so on. So I think that's an example what a company can do. Of course, we cannot be politicians and do a lot of things. But I think that in limited areas we can do a lot of change to equalize across the world and to give women a better chance in corporate life.
Thank you. Would anyone else want to weigh in on this? Because pigeonhole is heating up. Okay, just on this topic about how our top people, whether it's public, private sectors, can do. Now, this question, before I open up to the floor, is what do you think that the leaders of this generation, or the previous generation, a bit older than us, what can they do to help to grow the next generation of leaders, right? Before the three of you weigh in, I just want to ask if there's anyone from the floor, if just want to weigh in on this. What do you think the current generation of leaders, what do you think they can do to help the new generation of leaders?
So I'm going to give the Egyptian perspective as a change to the room. The motto of the Egyptian revolution was bread, freedom, social justice. And if it happened today, it would be security as well. It's very simple. In our part of the world, what we need from leaders is three things: preparation, opportunity, and participation. Sounds very simple, but preparation in terms of high quality education that allows us to compete for jobs properly inside Egypt and outside, inside the Arab world and outside, and not just reserved to those who can afford private education. Okay, in Egypt we have 700,000 graduates a year competing for 200,000 jobs. However, the delta is not 500,000, it's even greater, because the skills needed by jobs have not been enforced in the public, a system that needs development. Secondly, opportunities, not just in terms of jobs and better economic performance, but also support for the emerging entrepreneurship scene in our part of the world. That's very important. Finally, participation. I think it's no secret to you all that leaders in our part of the world don't just leave. We don't have former heads of state. They're either deposed in a revolution and it's sitting in jail, or they die. So participation in terms of having a say and seeing that, you know, the life cycle continues and leaders will leave room to the younger generation to take on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Would you guys want to weigh in on this? Lot?
I think the connection, the generational bridge is critical, whether it's at your family, at your society, or at your country, or even beyond. How well planned the transfer of information, for instance, is conducted, and how are you really trying to help others prepare for it? In countries like ours, where the population is so young, as I said, 2/3 under 25, it's very hard to look up to people for inspiration and for direction. Because if you do so, you look at a group of warlords, criminals, and people who've killed so many people and fought for so long. And maybe what the global leaders can do, including the business leaders, is to expand their areas of influence and connection. And that would probably help a lot of the young leaders, especially in the areas where leadership is critical and most needed. And that connection should help the world to be a better place in the 21st century, where leadership is not necessarily, as it was spoken in the morning, about certain countries or certain companies. It's been very divided, and the non-state actors are way more important today than ever before.
Thanks a lot. On the post Aditi, I mean, in your area of work, leadership can be very diffused in a very complex society. So how do you think leadership can be best exercised? I mean, a lot talked about expanding the area of influence, filling up the gaps so that new leaders can come up and come through the system. Now, in your work, trying to tackle gender divide, help the younger generation, do you share the same views?
So with the younger, what we've seen is with younger girls, they really look for mentors. They look for role models, be it male or female. I think hearing real-world stories of successful stories, people in leadership positions, will really impact young girls to think about leadership and be entrepreneurs in a very positive way. So I think what leaders can do is play a bit of a more mentorship role. And the second would be, in a corporate sense, I think brand messaging is very powerful to change the dialogue. I've seen that in India. A lot of brands are putting women in a very positive light. And I think that's really helping bring about the discussion about women empowerment, bridging that gender gap, and kind of empowering women to do more and get out there.
And then Farah, you work on this piece of work that is trying to bridge the religious divide. Very tough area and very contentious. You're trying to get both Catholics and Muslims to learn together in not so easy terrain. So how do you think the current leaders can help you in your work?
Just to give the context of what I do, I'm very much passionate in interfaith dialogue and understanding because I grew up in Manila and I actually was privileged enough to study in a Catholic school for girls, despite being the only Muslim and Maranao member in that community. And that type of exposure allowed me to get a deeper understanding of another major religion in the country. And it allowed me to actually form bonds of sisterhood with these fellow Filipinos. And this is why my passion when it comes to interfaith dialogue and peace studies actually stems from. I feel that when it comes to leadership in the country, first and foremost, it's important to have a leadership that is responsible and a leadership that veers away from corruption. It has been a topic that has constantly been repeated then again and again. It's important that corruption in various levels be actually removed. This, in effect, allows young leaders to be invited to join into this pool because they see that this is a playing field where they can actually initiate change in a positive way. But to remove corruption, it's actually a very difficult task. And to remove this abuse of power, it's difficult, but it is essential. Because if you see it actually happening, it also brings in a lot of other things. It invites investment, for example. If foreign investors can see that your country is a country that is not only stable in terms of peace and security, but a country where the government is transparent and has accountability and has respect for the rule of law, then it's easier to bring about these developments that we want to have. And not only any type of development, but sustainable development. And I feel that if I see more of my leaders actually become responsible and lead with integrity, then that would inspire many other young individuals to also thread on that path and not just confine themselves within the private sphere.
Now, we have talked quite a fair bit on what do we expect from the leaders of this generation. Now, a few of our audience have asked, now to the panelists, now we have talked about how this current generation can help you, but how do you think young leaders fit in, right? Do age and experience count for nothing? How do you think that the young and the more experienced can work together in the new workplace?
I think there's a lot of areas that the two tiers of leaders, can work together. I think it's already happening. I see less of a divide in leadership. For instance, in the Afghan government, we have, for the first time, ministers under 40, under 35. And we have more young generals, running the war, because some of the problems are not necessarily inherited by the former generation. It's the problems of our generation, and it requires 21st century leadership to address them. And it's our responsibility to address some of those issues. I think, as Aditi was saying, the mentorship is critical, and that has to be, I think, expanded. It would not be wise to say that age and experience doesn't come for anything. It's very, very important, and I hope we benefit more from that.
I would like to broadly take it to hospitals and how doctors work with younger doctors. There's this whole teaching hospitals where your younger doctors who are residents or young professionals are getting trained on the job, but you're being mentored while you're working. So I think that's a great model to kind of bring into the corporate world where there is a real mentorship, but it's on a day-to-day basis. And leadership really helps the younger generation learn skills which will help them go up that ladder.
Just to key in on that, I feel that whether it be in the corporate or in the political world, when people who have achieved a lot for their industry or for their country have created a beautiful legacy, like you've created a successful brand or you've created a successful mission for your country, you want that type of mission or vision to continue even after one has already stepped down for office. And for that vision to continue, you need to get good people on board. And these good people on board would be the individuals, such as us and other millions of other young people today, making them feel as if they're also your partners, and also imparting that type of mentorship, as what Aditi would say, would also help keep that legacy go on. So it's about ensuring that this legacy, which has benefited you in your generation, in your company, or your country, also keeps on continuing forward to the next generation. So it's a collaborative process, I feel.
Of course, I think that some of your comments have sparked off your request for mentorship and stuff, has sparked off a new range of questions that I think stems from who are you, right? They really want to know what motivates this generation of leaders. So in the past, it was money because we need to survive, bread and butter. And then came job satisfaction. So we are hearing that you need more purpose and you need more meaning in order to motivate the new workforce. So what are your thoughts? What drives you? I mean, is this a correct reflection of the workforce that you come across today? Aditi?
Sure. I definitely think meaningful work is a big key, especially we've seen that with research with women in most roles. They are typically in CSR, HR, it's about communication, it's about working for the well-being of society. So definitely that's a big factor when you talk about the motivation for younger generation. And I also believe it has to do with a lot of collaborative learning. I think the younger generation likes working in collaborative environments, working together with people of different cultures. So yeah, collaboration and... Yeah.
Okay. Lord, is it true that bread and butter is no longer important for you? It's a matter of life and death in Afghanistan?
I think belief is critical in my case. If you don't believe in the cause of what you do, it would be very difficult to have long-term commitment. And second, job satisfaction and the impact of what you do is also very critical. The day, in my case, for instance, the day when I see that our president and the opposition party both are unhappy from what I do or what we do, I think we do the right thing. And that is some sort of satisfaction I get from the impact, of what we do in a country where, as I said in the beginning, society was suppressed for so long, and just given the opportunity to speak and engage. So it's important to see, in the end of the day, whether you make a difference. And sometimes it's difficult to measure that difference, which results into confusion. So it's critical also to measure that every now and then and seek advices and leadership advices in particular.
Farah?
I agree with my two panelists. Don't want to prolong it further.
Okay. Right. Now we have a few more questions coming. And a lot of it comes from the views from this house that you seem to come from a generation whereby you expected things to be handed to them. Even the questions we ask, what do you want the existing leaders to do for you? Right? Is this a correct view, or your own experience is different?
To be honest, I don't share that view. I don't really believe in this huge difference between different generations of leaders. They're somehow connected, but it can be done, of course, more. As I said, some of the issues we face today, whether it's terrorism, whether it's some of the economic issues, are equally products of our generations. who are the ones who fight in the Middle East? Who are the Taliban foot soldiers? They are young men. They are people from our age. And they have an ideology which is driven by people from the same generation. And that is an issue with our generation, and we have to solve that, which requires more tolerance and more engagement. Especially with the ones deprived and not inspired enough in the right way.
Aditi, do you agree that it's being handed over to you? I mean, do you guys expect that, your generation?
You know, when you put it in the larger context, and it's really great to hear from a lot about the situation in Afghanistan, I think it really puts it into perspective about younger generation as a whole. And you know, if you're looking in a very corporate sense, there might be a lazy attitude where things are handed to you and you expect that kind of environment. But what he's talking about really puts it into a very big, broader context. And would not believe it's true for the larger young population.
Farah?
I guess it depends on what demands young people are making. Being a law student, I remember some of my professors would say, don't expect that we're going to spoon feed you with the teachings. Do the work necessary. And it also applies in the law firm industry. But I feel like demands, when it comes to basic rights, it's actually proper and correct for us to have a long list of demands, especially if they are not provided, especially if they deal with basic human rights. Having these long lists of demands is a way for us to actually knock at their doors and say, hey, why don't we have quality education provided to every type of individual in this country? These demands aren't actually us whining. These demands are actually us fighting for rights that every other individual should also have.
We are running a bit tight on time, so as a closing, I want to ask you guys a question that's a bit more difficult, but it's going to help my colleagues to run next year's conference, right? I'm going to ask you, what do you think is one issue per person on what Singapore Summit 2018 should be looking into, and who do you want to invite for this session? You can invite Trump too. I mean, not if you can get it here, but yeah, you can ask for it. So the secretary will take it down and they'll try. Who want to take a step at this? I mean, tell us, what is this, the next year's conference going to address? Who is this one person you want to invite to address this, and why? Who would like to start first?
Well, I would probably, now that this conference was not great, we really enjoyed it, especially the 2 days before the conference, which was equally fun. Probably more examples of businesses and leadership can be included, in which we get a more of a human and interest side of it, as we say in journalism. And I would love to see more women, of course. And also, if we can also expand the area, the geographic area, it would be great to see, because we talked a lot about countries that we do not necessarily have representatives here, and it's important to bring those perspectives as well.
Well, you're not going to wing it, because rarely do I get a chance to ask journalists questions. Only they ask me and I have to answer. So for this, what is that one person who you want to invite next year to address the summit?
I would probably bring an army chief, because some of the issues discussed here were a lot about politics and war, and the greater geopolitics. So someone who can really bring a different perspective. Could be India's army chief, could be Pakistan's army chief, for instance.
All right. Aditi, you want to take a step?
I think with technology advancing so much, I think a really nice topic for next year could be the 21st century security. So we're talking about cybersecurity, laws, regulations to handle, how we can handle the future of technology. And when you're thinking about security, and since I think the hot topic has been politics and geopolitics, I think a very interesting person to hear from would be Kim Jong-un from North Korea, because that's one country that nobody knows what's happening inside. So I would be very curious to hear from him.
You just make it really difficult for the next organizers.
If anybody can handle it in Singapore.
I'm sure they'll try very hard. All right, Farah. Top that.
Wow, this is actually a difficult question because there are a lot of individuals I would love to invite. But perhaps I would invite our president from the Philippines to come over, especially since he has gotten the attention not only in the ASEAN but also in the international forum. I think we all agree that he is an unconventional leader, but in this age that we try to strengthen regional collaboration and international cooperation, I feel that it's even more important to bring these voices of such unconventional leaders on the platform as well.
Well,
but it doesn't mean we shouldn't keep inviting His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Bhutan.
Exactly. Big round of applause. Let's welcome him on to the... He's just joined us. Big round of applause, please. Thank you. And on this note, it's just opportune for me to thank the panelists today for sharing your hopes, fears, and aspirations. How do you think that the generation of today can help to forge an even stronger, more inspirational generation of tomorrow? You just, although you made my day, my week really bad, but I'm truly inspired that for the next 39 years of my life, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to quit my job, but I'm going to look at things a bit differently now. Maybe visit you a lot, I'm not too sure, but...
anytime.
But I think that don't let the conversation stop. I think it's important for the younger generation to continue to engage in our generation of today, that we can work together as one for a better world. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.